China didn't just enter the global steel industry. They took it over completely. In less than 40 years, they went from producing barely enough steel to build a bridge to manufacturing more than the entire rest of the world combined. We're talking over 1 billion tons every single year. While America's steel towns turned into graveyards and Europe's legendary mills went silent, China built an empire so massive that modern civilization now runs on their steel. And it all started with a decision that changed everything. 1978, China's producing 37 million tons of steel a year. Sounds impressive until you realize America's making over 100 million tons, Japan's cranking out 102 million, and the Soviet Union's pushing 150 million. China's steel industry is primitive, outdated, stuck decades in the past. Workers are using equipment from the 1950s. Furnaces that should have been scrapped decades ago are still running. Then, Deng Xiaoping makes the call. Modernize everything. Pour money into heavy industry. Buy technology from the West. Build bigger. Build faster. Scale like no one's ever seen before. Western companies line up to sell their equipment. They think they're offloading outdated technology to a nation that'll never catch up. They're making short-term profits on machinery they consider obsolete. The Germans sell blast furnaces. The Japanese sell rolling mills. The Americans sell automation systems. But China's not just buying equipment. They're studying it, reverse engineering it, improving it. And they're building factories at a pace that makes Western executives nervous. One mill goes up, then another, then 10 more. Cities that never had steel production suddenly have massive complexes stretching for miles. The investment is staggering. Billions of dollars flooding into iron ore mines in Inner Mongolia. New ports built specifically to handle ore shipments. Railway lines constructed just to move raw materials to the furnaces. By 1990, production hit 66 million tons. By 1995, it's 95 million tons. The growth curve is almost vertical. Every year, capacity that took Western nations decades to build appears in China in months. Then, in 1996, something happens that shocks the entire industry. China surpasses the United States as the world's largest steel producer. The country that invented modern steel making just got overtaken by a nation that was agrarian 30 years earlier. But this was just the warm-up. 2001. China joins the World Trade Organization. The floodgates open, and suddenly China needs steel like a person needs oxygen. Beijing announces the 2008 Olympics. They're not just hosting games, they're rebuilding an entire nation on camera for the world to see. The Bird's Nest Stadium alone needs 42,000 tons of steel. The National Aquatic Center, the airport terminal, the subway expansions. Steel, steel, steel. Then comes the infrastructure explosion. High-speed rail networks stretching thousands of miles across terrain that seems impossible to cross. The Shanghai Tower, 632 meters of twisted steel rising from the ground, requiring 120,000 tons of steel just for its frame. The Hangzhou Bay Bridge, 22 miles long, needing enough steel to build 100 Eiffel Towers. Entire cities appearing where farmland stood just months before. Bridges spanning distances that seem impossible. Apartment complexes housing 50,000 people shoot up in 18 months. Each one needs more steel than a small American town uses in a decade. But here's where it gets insane. In 2003, China's producing 220 million tons annually. 5 years later, for the Beijing Olympics, that number doubles to 500 million tons. 500 million tons. In 5 years, they added more steel production capacity than the entire United States possessed. The global steel market goes into shock. Prices spike. Iron ore prices triple. Demand is unquenchable. Western producers can't keep up with orders. Ships queue for weeks at Australian ports, waiting to load ore bound for China. And China's not buying Western technology anymore. They're building their own. Baosteel emerges as a technological powerhouse, developing steel grades that didn't exist 5 years earlier. Hebei Iron and Steel becomes a name that controls more production capacity than entire European nations. Wuhan Iron and Steel Company masters automation that puts Western mills to shame. These aren't companies. They're industrial empires with their own railways, their own ports, their own cities. The furnaces run 24/7. The output is relentless. Then the West realizes something terrifying. China's not just catching up anymore. They're pulling ahead. 2010, China's producing 600 million tons of steel annually. That's more than the next 10 countries combined. But they've got a problem. They've built so much capacity that their domestic market can't absorb it all. Even with construction everywhere, the mills are producing faster than the cranes can build. So they do what empires do. They export. Chinese steel floods. Global markets. Prices crash. A ton of steel that cost $800 now costs $400, then $300. American mills that survived a century can't compete. They shut down. Bethlehem Steel, once the backbone of American industry, gone. U.S. Steel slashes production by half. Nucor struggles. ArcelorMittal closes American facilities. Steel towns become ghost towns. Youngstown, Gary, Pittsburgh watches its last mills go cold. Europe's legendary mills start falling like dominoes. ThyssenKrupp closes facilities across Germany. British Steel collapses. French mills shut down. Even Japan, the efficiency masters who revolutionized steel production in the 1980s, watch their production shrink year after year. The mills that supplied Toyota and Honda can't compete with Chinese prices, but China isn't stopping. By 2015, they're producing 800 million tons. That's half the world's steel. Half. One country, one flag. Absolute dominance. Then comes the move that seals it. The Belt and Road Initiative. China's building ports in Africa, railways across Asia, highways through the Middle East, power plants in Southeast Asia, and every single project uses Chinese steel. They're not just dominating production anymore. They're controlling where it goes and what it builds. Pakistan's Gwadar Port, Ethiopian railways, Indonesian smelters, all Chinese steel. But here's what nobody saw coming. China's steel isn't cheap junk anymore. They're producing the highest grade steel on the planet. Ultra-high-strength steel for skyscrapers that can withstand earthquakes. Specialized alloys for aircraft that need to handle extreme stress. Silicon steel for transformers that power entire nations. Wear-resistant steel for mining equipment, the stuff you need to build anything modern, anything that matters. Western companies that need quality steel have no choice. They buy from China. Boeing buys from China. Caterpillar buys from China. Siemens buys from China. 2020 rolls around. China hits 1,053 million tons. For perspective, India produces 118 million tons. Japan, 83 million. The United States, 73 million. Russia, 72 million. China produces more than all of them added together, and then doubled. More than the United States, India, Japan, Russia, South Korea, Germany, Turkey, and Brazil combined. And they control the entire supply chain, the iron ore processing, the coking coal, the rare earth elements needed for specialty steels, the limestone for flux, the transportation networks, the shipping routes. You want to build a city, a navy, a power grid, a car factory? You're going through China. Today, 57% of the world's steel comes from Chinese furnaces. When Shanghai needs steel for a new metro line, they produce it faster than Pittsburgh ever dreamed possible. When Africa needs steel for a dam, it ships from Hebei. When Europe needs specialty steel for wind turbines, the order goes to Baosteel. When South America builds bridges, Chinese steel crosses the Pacific. And now China's doing something even more terrifying. They're future-proofing their dominance. Electric arc furnaces that cut carbon emissions by 70%. Hydrogen-based steel production that eliminates coal entirely. Smart factories run by artificial intelligence that optimize every stage of production in real time. While Western nations debate climate policy and argue over regulations, China's already building the next generation of steel mills, green steel facilities in Inner Mongolia, carbon capture technology in Hebei. Production methods that won't exist in the West for another decade. They're not just leading today's steel industry, they're building tomorrow's. By 2030, analysts predict China will hit 1,200,000,000 tons annually, and it'll be cleaner, faster, and more advanced than anything the world has ever seen. The message is clear. China took over the global steel industry, and they're never giving it back.